I beat China all the time. When was the last time you saw a Chevrolet in Tokyo? I am officially running for President of the United States. I would build a great wall, and nobody builds walls better than me, believe me. The American dream is dead.
Good morning and welcome to Trump Talk, a talk show based on Donald Trump. My name is Wouter Westerveld and sat in front of me is my colleague Valeria Dryamova. The presidential elections in the United States are fast approaching and many people are concerned as to who will win. One particular candidate is stirring up a vast amount of controversy. Valeria, please tell us.
Donald Trump, famous billionaire, is in the running for presidency. To the surprise of many, he has managed to gain quite a following. In light of this, throughout the program, we will try to find the answer to the question, what would happen if Donald Trump became president?
In the studio we have two guests, Peter de Haan, a sociologist, and Jelte Oldhoff, professor at the University of Groningen, specialized in American politics. Welcome to the show, Peter and Jelte.
Nice to be here.
First, we are going to listen to a report from our reporter Kees de Ruiter, who has spoken to an American citizen living in the Netherlands to see what he thinks about Trump.
There is a nice atmosphere right now in the sports center Zwolle. Team Landstede is winning the game. And the American volleyball player Matt Henley did it very well. Now I'm walking to him. Hello, Matt. You played very well. Donald Trump will be probably proud of you because you make America great again. What's going on in America? It's all about Donald Trump, isn't it?
I've been out of the States for a little over 2 years now, so I'm not too invested in the politics over there. But if I was there, I wouldn't be voting for him. I just think he's got one too many policies that I disagree with. The ones on immigration and shutting out people of different creeds and races is a little ridiculous, and I don't think it represents America very well.
Yeah, we know Trump as a crazy man. He really is.
He's playing into the media, so even over here in Europe, you see the very worst of what he has to offer, which is a bad thing. But he's still, I don't think, a fit candidate for president.
If this volleyball, is like Trump's head, what would you do then with the ball?
Well, if it's a volleyball, I'm gonna hit the volleyball either way. That's what I do for a living. But that's kind of a silly question.
You just played a volleyball game. Everybody says that Trump is also playing a game. What do you think? Is he really do that?
Unfortunately, it's not a game. He's getting closer to the elections, which are on November 8th. But like I said before, I don't think he's going to be the president, the next president at least.
If Trump will be elected, do you want to go back to the States?
Absolutely. I mean, it doesn't. You know, the president of the United States is obviously a big thing, and it's the country, but it's still home for me. You know, I wouldn't abandon my home just because of one man. It would take a lot more than that.
Matt Henley, thank you.
No problem.
This American citizen doesn't seem to be very worried, but RSA and our reporter Georgie Jure met with a group of American teachers living in Zwolle.
An American flag is waving outside Windesheim. They are welcoming people from Widener University in Pennsylvania to make an agreement with Windesheim. I look for them to know what they think of Trump. At the canteen, I can see sitting in a table 6 people who don't seem like students. Excuse me, are you from Widener University?
Oh, yeah.
We wanted to ask you some questions.
Okay.
And what do you think of Donald Trump?
I wish that wasn't what you were asking me about. I'm horrified by him. I truly hope that somehow we figure out even to have another candidate for the Republican Party, because hopefully there are plenty of smart people that realize he would make an exceptionally bad president.
And for you?
It's frightening, embarrassing. I'm really worried about what would happen in the future if he wins. I think he appeals to a very sad state of affairs. You know, people are people are afraid in the United States, and he fans that flame. So I'm afraid of more discrimination, violence, all kinds of problems as a result if he wins.
And you?
I think he's a bully. I think he's embarrassing. And I think he acts like a child to me.
But the fact is that he has been winning so much elections so far.
Well, I think the people that like him are the people that are unhappy that America isn't as special and as wonderful as it once was. And that is mostly because we are now part of a global economy. They used to be able to go to high school and find a job in a factory and do okay, have a car, have a house, have a family. And now without education, they can't do any of that. And they're mad, and they think it's because America isn't special anymore, but really it's because we're part of the world.
We also have the states like California, New York, and Pennsylvania that they haven't done their primaries yet. And I think we'll see a shift when we get to some of those states where people are maybe less angry and more concerned about what the real outcome is going to be.
Okay, so thank you very much and have a nice stay here.
You too.
Thank you. Thank you.
These highly educated people don't expect Trump to win, but they are scared.
And Peter, what do you think? Is it a good chance that Trump will win?
I think as things are heading now, he is probably going to win the Republican nominee,
Yeah.
but he isn't going to be president.
Hmm.
I think let's compare it to Spain. If Le Pen was one of the two candidates, what actually happened, the socialists started moving for the conservative candidate. So I think that's going to happen. And so Donald Trump's probably going to win the Republican nominee, or they're trying to throw him out, which basically means the end of the democratic process in the Republican Party. It would tear the party apart. You would get three parties, and people will rally to either Clinton or, as I hope, Bernie Sanders, but he is not doing that well. And but I think he's not going to make the majority is not going to stand for this. But a very big minority is, and that's very frightening, certainly for the Republican Party at the moment.
And personally for you, would you have thought that he would come this far?
Personally, well, I was surprised. I didn't consider him a big ideologue, or I actually sometimes as I'm looking to him, is he playing a show? And he's doing it well, and he's feeding on. Well, you don't have to. It's not especially the United States. I mean, if you look at Holland, we have Wilders. He's the same. I think Wilders is a bigger ideologue. I think Trump is mainly just a businessman who sees a market. But there are groups of people. There's an interesting statistic in the United States. The life expectancy of white, poor males is declining. So that used to be in the middle class. What the lady was saying was actually perfectly right. People tend to go to a factory and had a normal, decent job. Now they have 3 jobs, and they're angry. And they're right to be angry. But what Donald Trump is doing, he's fusing that anger to foreigners, to Latinos, to everyone who isn't white.
Yeah, in which you say he has like an image for his Trump voters, like he is a Mr. Big Mouth, how they call him. Do you think in this campaign, if he actually gets elected, can he keep up his image?
No, because then he has to deal with other real world powers, which actually, well, sometimes he reminds me of Putin. Also the big macho. I think Putin is smarter than him. He's not gonna deliver. But I think if he's gonna be there will be people around him, and there are strong institutions in the United States that will prevent things to collapse immediately. I mean, there's a judicial system. There are states, but the problem is it's eroding. And if that institution keep on eroding, and if he's not going to deliver, then the question is what's going to be next? Because people are still going to be mad, and we need a real solution. I think the United States needs a real Roosevelt, and he's not a real Roosevelt.
Okay.
Thank you. And now it's time now to talk about facts of his political program, and here they are.
Donald Trump is going to end border crossings from Mexico because he claims that some of those border crossers are rapists.
And he expects Mexico to pay for that wall. Trump also wants to protect the USA from immigrants from Latin America and the Middle East.
With regards to health, Trump wants to change the Obamacare system and he wants to replace it with something that benefits everybody.
In economy, Trump promises to renegotiate the foreign trade deals and create a lot of jobs.
He even said, "I will be the greatest jobs president that God ever created."
What about foreign policy? Trump promises to work hard on the Islamic State problem and stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons.
Also, he promises to protect the Second Amendment, which states the right of the people to keep and bear guns. Jelte. So, as we can see a growth of radical right-wing parties in Europe, as well in the United States. Why are these parties popping up everywhere?
Right, yeah, that's a good question. I think the million-dollar question right now in American politics is why Trump, right? Why Donald Trump? Where does he come from? Because basically, ever since he nominated himself as a candidate for the Republican Party, I think he's been written off at least a dozen times. Everybody said he was never going to make it through the primaries. Then suddenly started winning all these primaries. Everybody said he'll never win the Republican nomination, which seems very likely. The lady in the interview said there's states coming up like California, New York, which she hopes will be more moderate, but I don't necessarily share her optimism. I think polls show people are very much in favor of Trump there as well. And so, yeah, how do you answer that question? I think Peter gave a really good starting point, which is people in the Republican Party are extremely angry. So CNN had a poll out this month which says that 49% of self-identified Republicans are angry at the federal government. 40% of them, this is also interesting, are angry at the Republican Party, at their own party. Those are pretty huge statistics. They're a little less for the other candidates like Ted Cruz and so on. But these people are extremely angry, and you have to ask yourselves, why are they so angry, and why does that translate in Trump, right? So the reason why they're angry is, I think, the Obama presidency, something that maybe over here in Europe we're not necessarily looking at as much. Things like passing of same-sex marriage, riots, all that kind of stuff. People get angry about that. And why do they vote for Trump? I think a lot of that has to do with his style. He, unlike John McCain, Mitt Romney, poses himself, like the 2008 and 2012 candidates, he poses himself as an outsider. And people think that they need someone outside of Washington to fix things. And that's part of his charm, part of his appeal, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Donald Trump is not only known for the controversial things he says, but also for the reaction they cause. Some supporters react in extreme ways of what he says, sometimes even with violence.
These sort of reactions make us question whether people are behaving rationally or whether what Trump says is simply causing hysteria through being blown out of proportion. Our reporter Marty Roma investigated further.
Do you believe that you've done anything to create a tone where this kind of violence would be encouraged?
I hope not. I truly hope not. I mean, I see it. There is some anger. There's also great love for the country. It's a beautiful thing in many respects, but I certainly do not condone that at all.
Demonstrators in Donald Trump rallies have just become the perfect opportunity to him to speak out louder than normal about the need, according to him, to make America great again.
Go home and get a job. Go home, get a job. These are not the people that made our country great. These are the people that are destroying our country.
The Oxford English Dictionary defines hysteria as emotion or excitement, but also as an old-fashioned term for psychological stress. Anything is possible in this campaign, and like in the dictionary, there is a correlation between stress and hysteria. But the stress from who? Not only from the Republican establishment, but also from the media. Jerry Springer, former Cincinnati mayor, ensured in an interview for the CNN that America won't choose Trump as a president, even though he might set to be the Republican candidate.
I don't think there's any way that Donald Trump gets elected president of the United States. He may win the Republican nomination, but America is not going to vote for him. Once you get the whole electorate voting, Hispanics, African Americans, women, young people, once you get everybody in that picture, they're not going to vote for Donald Trump because they're not going to want his finger on the button.
In the same vein, Anna Kasparian, one of the hosts of the Young Turks, the largest online news show in the world, tags Trump as vague and explains some of the weaknesses of his speeches.
During the debates, he's very obvious in being vague in his answers, not being specific about what he would actually do if he was the president, like wording like, oh, I'm going to take down ISIS and I'm going to fight China.
And another pundit, Harvard professor Daniel Allen, advises of the danger of the hypothetical presidency of Donald Trump.
And I think that's why what I really want to do is to say everybody should just take a moment, stop, and think about what really matters here. There's lots of reason to think we do need to get our house in order. Yes, on immigration. Yes, on issues of security. But voting for Donald Trump is a little bit like trying to get your house in order, trying to clean up the house by burning down the house.
But what is going on meanwhile? Trump is rising in the Republican primaries, becoming one of the main options as the future Republican candidate for the American election. Why? What is appealing from what he is saying? Trump is using this stress against him as a tool to turn Republican voters as Trumpers, as one attendant to a Trump rally said.
The thing Trump's really good at is getting otherwise rational people to clamp down harder on their fears and prejudices. These people aren't monsters. They're completely normal. But for whatever reason, they let their fears drive them, and that turns them into weapons.
Trump has drawn support by citing a range of policy concerns, rallying emotions of the Americans, and that is what allows his candidacy to build steam as well as rise up in the primaries. Because of Trump, in the public, stress becomes hysteria, but in the media, hysteria from the public drives to stress. What can stop him now? Only a vote against him. Maybe in the presidential election, the hope that people might realize that the stone castle of ideas he has for America is actually a sandcastle.
Well, that's quite an ending, a stone castle that turns out to be a sand castle. Listening to this report, it seems that we may have underestimated Trump for too long. Can you explain us why we underestimated him for too long, Jelte?
Yeah, I think a lot of people thought that there's no substance to him, right? There's no real policy, and like what was said in the report. But then we forget that building a wall, for all the craziness it might entail, is a policy, and it appeals to people. And so is, radical policy measures like banning Muslims from entering the United States, which under current treaties in the U.S. Constitution would actually be unlawful and illegal. But it's appealing to people. If you don't,
so it's more like he's saying things that people like. So to how do you say it? People, he says things that people like.
Right, and I think so. So one thing that I don't agree with is that Donald Trump would be someone who's hysterical, that his crowds are hysterical. I think that's what's happening is irrational to some extent. So let me explain. Trump rallies, I think, are places where a lot of people get the sense that who they think they are, like white, usually Anglo-Saxon, Protestant Americans, is what America is, and they feel that reinforced. Do you understand what I mean? So they go to these rallies and they actually feel American again. They feel that America can become great again, which is irrational to a certain extent. But it's not hysterical. It's like I said, it resonates with them, the idea that Trump can actually do this, and I think that is what his supporters like so much about him. You could almost say like it's going to church in a way, right? These rallies, they're massive events, and people feel that their confidence in what America can be is restored.
Like feeling the hype of it.
Yeah. So and it's irrational in that sense, but it's not. hysterical in the sense that I think that they want to tear into people, or although this violence happens at these rallies. I'm not denying that, but there's also like a positive feeling to it, right? Which reinforces hopes and dreams people have of how America supposedly once was. Which is what he also does, which is like, I would say, like the positive side to Trump. There's a lot of hope in his message, even though we don't usually see it. But I think for a lot of Americans, there's a lot of hope and confidence in his message, which appeals to them, which is what has driven support for him so far and will continue to do. Because I think one thing that's dangerous, if we established right that a lot of people have written him off in the past, let's say Trump will never become the nominee for the Republican candidacy. I think there's a really big chance. There's a really good chance that he will become president of the United States. If you do the electoral math, let's say, the states Trump can carry, what we call the old Rust Belt states, where there's lots of blue-collar workers with industrial jobs, Trump can win that vote, and then he can win the presidency. So I'm not writing him off right now, like the mayor of Cincinnati did. I don't think that's a good idea.
Okay.
And if it happens, how do you think what major changes will happen if Donald Trump becomes president?
Right. So what the consequences will be?
Yeah, what major changes will happen?
That's a good question. See, so I've thought about that, and I honestly have to say I don't know, because Trump is, to a large extent, I mean, he has these policy plans. Yeah. I honestly think he might, at heart, he might be a lot more moderate than we think. He might become a very responsible president. I'm not ruling that out at all. And honestly, if you'd ask me, if I'd had to choose between him and his major contestant right now, Ted Cruz, who's a Texas senator, Bible-thumping, gun-shooting individual, he has a principled view of his beliefs, right? That Trump doesn't share. He seems to say these things while it suits him, whereas in the past, for example, he was pro-abortion. He supported Democrats. He's really good friends with Hillary Clinton. Well, was at one point. So he's a man of the world, much more than someone like Ted Cruz. He's been all over the world. He's married twice to immigrants, right? So, does he really hate immigrants? It seems a little rough to say that if you look at his personal history.
If we ask Peter, what do you think? Do you think there will become major changes will happen?
I think I tend to agree what my neighbor was saying. He may be playing, let's throw something controversial out there. He may be playing Hitler, but he isn't Hitler.
It's like just a comparison between, they want to compare him with someone.
I think he is deep down still a businessman who knows what his electorate is wanting to hear. And in politics, don't make the difference between rationale and feelings. They're both there, and we're emotional beings. So he knows that. He tends to play that card. It would be very interesting what he's going to do if he's going to run for president, really in the big election. Is he going to change his market view? And there is a constitution. He needs to declare martial law to throw away the constitution. The presidency isn't a dictatorship. He needs to convince Congress.
Okay.
It's going to be very difficult for him.
Okay.
But I think he's going to be the businessman. He's going to be rational change.
Thank you. We're now moving on. And now our quizmaster Robert van het Woud is in the studio. Welcome, Robert.
Good day, good day. Thank you for having me on. A lovely show you're putting on here. I hear a lot of talk about Trump, what he said, things might not be true or not. And you just said like he's going to be a very successful president, maybe. But actually, many of his companies actually went bankrupt during his business days. Maybe you've heard of it. Maybe a few of his businesses he started out, like Trump Shuttle, Trump Vodka, Trump Magazine, Trump University even. Trump Go Holidays, like he had a holiday company that went bankrupt as well. And he even used to sell steaks, and he fucked up in that as well. But maybe the best example of his failures is in 2006, he started a mortgage company. And 1 year later, in 2007, the housing crisis hit. And of course, the company went bankrupt as well. Well, I have a few questions for you. And it would be fun if you would participate in them. The first one is a really easy one. Is it true or not that last year, Trump wished haters and losers a happy 9/11? And he literally congratulated them on Twitter. Is that true or false? I asked one of the guests.
I think I remember that's
It's true. Yeah, it's a very easy questions for Trump experts, but indeed it's true. He wished haters and losers a happy 9/11 as a party day. Next one. In an attempt to battle terrorism, Trump called to attack ISIS in what way exactly? Answer A. Carpet bomb the IS capital Raqqa with all the power America has. B. Kill their families. Or C. Deploy 30,000 American troops in Syria to build safe zones.
Do you want us both to answer?
Just whoever thinks the answer is true.
I'd say A.
Yeah, I think carpet bombing.
Carpet bombing?
Yeah.
It's actually all three. He actually proposed all three things.
He wanted to carpet bomb as his troops are on the ground, right?
Well, he wanted to carpet bomb the capital Raqqa and then just deploy 30,000 American troops in other areas of Syria and then make safe zones for the families.
I was gonna say, because if you carpet bomb Raqqa, you probably take care of B already, right? Killing the family, yeah.
Yeah, that was his plan. All right. Next one, and we're almost getting the last one already. A huge American fact-check site, PolitiFacts, claimed 65% of all statements Donald Trump makes are mostly false. Is that true or not?
Yeah.
Must be true? It's actually false. It's more. It's 76% of his facts are actually false. All right, I'm almost done. The last one. Which of the following quotes is actually from Donald Trump? A. I went to an Ivy League school. I'm very highly educated. I know words. I have the best words. B. You know that guy has $8 million more than me while pointing at a homeless man. Or C. I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue, shoot somebody, and not lose any voters.
Yeah, they're all true.
They're all true.
Yeah.
Trick question you saw right through me. Yeah, it's all true. All right, that's it for me. Thanks for having me on and have a very, very fun show. Good luck.
Thank you, Robert. Always a pleasure. And now we are moving to serious business, and our reporter Silvia Kusnies paints a picture of what would happen to the world if Donald Trump were to win the election.
Donald Trump, a wildly renowned name which has been on nearly every American's lips for both good and bad reasons. Many American citizens are almost certain that he doesn't stand a true chance of becoming president. However, the figures say otherwise. Trump is currently only 950 votes behind Democratic leader Hillary Clinton, with the potential to secure 1,044 more votes in the running to become the representative of his party. Despite the reservations of many Americans, we must consider what could happen if Donald Trump were to become President of the United States. Let's say the year is 2017. It's the 21st of January, and just yesterday, Donald Trump was inaugurated as the 45th President of the United States. With promises of making America great again, Trump has done precisely that by pouring much of this greatness into the Great Wall of Mexico, a true rival of the Great Wall of China. Now, not only do Americans have national security, they also have a great touristic photo opportunity. The burdens of marriage, an expensive ceremony, name-changing drama, and the potential for divorce have been lifted off the LGBT community's shoulders once and for all, thanks to President Trump, who fulfilled his promise to overturn marriage equality. Thank goodness Trump is restricting the rights of gay people. What a great president. Are you already struggling to support your family of four due to the cost of living compared to minimum wage? Well, have no fear. President Trump will ensure that nothing will change. He has every intention of keeping the minimum wage at $7.25, which means that a person trying to get ahead in the US can expect an income of $13,926.83 after taxes for an entire year. While some cities and states are campaigning for $15 minimum wage, that will certainly not happen under President Trump. Jokes aside, poor people, immigrants, LGBT people, people of colour, women and Muslims, amongst many more, could suffer disastrous effects from the election of Donald Trump. Such effects could stretch further than the confines of America, into Europe too. As hundreds of thousands of people flee from conflict zones in countries like Syria, many far-right anti-immigration parties speak to voters' fears of what the influx will mean for their nations. In Poland, for example, former Prime Minister Jarosław Kaczyński warned that Muslim refugees would bring parasites and diseases to the local population. Similarly, Sweden Democrats leader Jimmy Åkesson stated that Islamism is the Nazism and communism of our time. With the increase of refugees and suicide attacks, it can only be assumed that such parties will continue to rise in popularity throughout the entirety of Europe. This means that our future may not be as different as we think to that of the United States under the presidency of Donald Trump.
Yeah, we would just listen to it. Is she right? I'll start with you, Peter. Could this be our future?
Yeah, there is a possibility. I actually think some leaders of the extreme right in Europe are more dangerous than Trump. I think Wilders is more dangerous than Trump. But it's my analysis of his psychology. I'm a sociologist, not a psychologist. But I think Donald Trump is still deep down a businessman who can be reasoned with.
So he sees it like as a business.
I think he sees it as a business, but I'm not sure. Nobody knows. Leaders there has been a big study a few years ago about economic insecurity and the rise of the extreme right. Also about the feeling that everything is a market and you have to compete, then everybody else is a competition. If you don't unite workers to fight for their rights, they're going to see every other worker as a competitor. So if thousands of competitors are crossing the borders, you tend to be afraid. And like I said, ration and emotions, it's all fair game. And if certain political leaders are trying to change the value system, then people will react to that. You've seen that here in the Netherlands, same in the United States. If we don't get a real alternative, I mentioned Roosevelt before, that's a possible path.
And Jelte, if you hear this, do you agree with him?
Yeah, I think so. I think to a large extent, when it comes to the economic question like the minimum wage, it's the present. We're not talking about the future. That's the present. One thing I find weird, if I just confine to the United States for a minute, is that nobody seems to tie that to the current president, right? Because it's a legitimate question. After 8 years of Obama, there's still a lot of people, even though the economy is recovering in the United States, that have these economic woes, these problems. Now, you can blame Trump hypothetically in the future for that, but it's a perfectly legitimate choice, I think, of voters right now in the United States to say, well, no more of that. So I don't want Democrats again who will just continue that policy.
Okay, now thank you for your answer. So our show is coming to an end. And at the beginning of the show, we questioned what would happen if Donald Trump became president. And after listening to all the reports, we think, yes, maybe Donald Trump can become president, but will it affect us? Will it affect Europe? We can only wait and see.
Thank you, Peter and Jelte, for being our guests today. I hope everyone enjoyed our show, and we will see you next time.